My name is Craig Stevens, and I'm here with Hitendra Chaturvedi. See, I got it right. There we go.
Got it. Fantastic.
Hitendra is an innovator who's owned his own company. He's worked for a Big Five management consulting firm, and now is a professor here at Arizona State University. And we're here to be able to talk with you today about concepts of entrepreneurship and what it means to people, not just young people, but older guys like us. We were just talking about that a moment ago.
Say old.
I didn't say, okay. Old, seasoned. How about seasoned?
There you go. There you go. There you go.
So
my white hair is all black underneath. I just color it white.
I wear a hat because I have no hair. So we're here to be able to talk about entrepreneurship and how to be able to try to make the impossible possible. So welcome, Hitendra. I've got a bunch of questions for you today, but really the most important one is, or the very first one, is to you, what really is entrepreneurship? We hear this term all the time, but what does it mean? Is it simply owning a business? What is it?
Entrepreneurship is not something that one you're born with, or somebody puts a label on your forehead and say, now I'm an entrepreneur, or now you're an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurship is a way of thinking. Entrepreneurship is a way of looking around at your world and saying that if there is a problem, there are ways to solve the problem. If there are pain points, can I solve the problem? Am I the kind of person who will endure the pain and not think about fixing it? Or am I the kind of person who looks at the pain and see, I'm going through the pain, everybody else is going through the pain, and I'm the one who goes ahead and fixes it? So entrepreneurship as a tag is pretty cool, but most of the entrepreneurs who become entrepreneurs don't one day decide and say, that's pretty cool. Let me be an entrepreneur now. One innate capability that you should have to be an entrepreneur is to say that I'm a problem solver.
So you mentioned that. Is there characteristics, say, within an individual that really kind of leads towards entrepreneurship? And and are there things that people can be able to do to develop it? The same way that, we all used to do in sports, as an example, until I got out of shape and so on.
When kids are kids, they have no boundaries. For them, a small stone could be a shark's tooth. They will imagine it. A cloud up there in the sky can be a bunny, a dragon, or whatsoever. The problem is when we grow up, we create boundaries for ourselves and we carry a lot of baggage. So the characteristics of an entrepreneur, in my mind, is to never be satisfied with rules that have been put around us, to ask questions. That is the first thing. Why are we doing this in this way? Is there a better way to do this? So the entrepreneurial trait that is core to the being is always be dissatisfied with the status quo.
I know with my children, when I tell them something, they may or may not listen. But if you told them the exact same thing, they would listen to you and not necessarily me. So maybe your children are similar to mine in that regard. So if you were to talk to everyone's children out there about, what they could be able to do to be able to get started on an entrepreneurship path, what would you say would be something that they could be able to do to get them going?
When I started my company when I was 37. My biggest reason for starting the company was not because I wanted to be a billionaire. My reason for starting the company was that I thought to myself, I don't want to have regrets in my life. That was one. If all the students that we deal with here at ASU also, all the students at WP Carey and all the students I meet with Barrett and engineering, they are smart kids. They have such an amazing capability, and I see them and I say that, are you going to be a job taker or are you going to be a job maker? When you grow old, and when somebody asks you, okay, tell me your life story, what would that life story be? Did you make that little bitty dent in the universe? Or you just went along for the ride when others were going ahead and charting a course for the rest of the world to follow? So think back and say, when your parents used to tell you that you're unique, you're special.
Out of curiosity, what would you think would be a barrier to entry for entrepreneurship for people? Would it be something like people's fear of failure? I mean, is that, I know myself that I have failed many times in my life. What do you think is something like that, or other aspects maybe be a barrier for most people, and how would they overcome those barriers?
It's funny you bring this up because when kids are small, 5-year-old, 6-year-old, and or even younger, 1-year-old, when they're learning how to walk. Mm-hmm. When they walk, they fall. What do we parents tell us? It's okay, get up.
Yep.
You're not a failure.
Mm-hmm.
The same kid, when they grow up, we tell them that failure is not acceptable. And that is the biggest problem, is for us to start to think that failure is not okay, that my risk appetite is getting less and less and less. So the biggest barrier is for people around us and our professors and our family members saying that failure is actually a badge of honor.
And I've heard these terms used all the time. You know, entrepreneurship and intrapreneurship they feel like they're the same thing, but obviously there's differences there. Can you describe that to our listeners and how you feel that characteristics are similar and maybe how characteristics are common or different?
The foundation is entrepreneurial thinking or the entrepreneurial mindset. Now, if you have the problem-solving entrepreneurial mindset, you can either go in a company as an employee and do the same thing. Post-it was started at 3M by an employee who was an intrapreneur. Mm-hmm. Your entire Mac line and Apple was created by a group of intrapreneurs. As a matter of fact, Steve Jobs used to talk about the intrapreneur team within Apple. Flaming Hot Cheetos was started by an intrapreneur. So the quality of an intrapreneur and an entrepreneur is the same. So intrapreneur will be an entrepreneur working within a company. Mm-hmm. And an entrepreneur would be somebody who says, I don't want to work for a company. I will create my own company. So that becomes an entrepreneur. The words are different. One working for a large company with a little bit less of a risk appetite so that you get the monthly paycheck, but still behaving like that. And the other one says, I'm going to take the bigger risk because I expect a bigger reward. So that's how, and at ASU, in our Masters in Entrepreneurship program, which we call MSIVD, Innovation Venture Development, we are training our students to first create a foundation of an entrepreneurial mindset and then take two paths based upon their electives, whether they want to be a corporate intrapreneur or they want to be an entrepreneur.
And I know that you recently took over as the faculty director for that program. Can you describe that program a little bit more? What it means, the type of person that potentially can come into the program? What does that new program mean?
So that it's actually not a new program. It has been there for about 3 years, and so yes, I've been anointed as the faculty director of that program, and I'm very excited about it. That program teaches our students. We teach them how to think like an entrepreneur, starting with customer discovery, how to design your products and services, basics of finance and accounting, how do you make money, unit economics, how to be a leader, how to create a vision, a mission statement for your company, how to hire people, how to fire people, how to create a team, how do you have an operations and supply chain when you start to scale, and most importantly, how do you file a patent, how do you protect a patent. How do you do digital marketing in the age of artificial intelligence? What are things changing? How do you become good at it? And the one class that I love the most is how do you scale you? Are you the right person as an entrepreneur?
Interesting. And when you talk about entrepreneurship, often people, of course, think of places like the Silicon Valley. And I've heard you talk about the greater Phoenix area and kind of the uniqueness at ASU that helps create a Silicon Valley 2.0. Can you describe what that is?
Yeah, I partially joke about this. I said that today's Silicon Valley is faking it. Because there's no silicon there.
Okay, we just had about half of our audience probably turn off, but that's okay.
The true silicon, we have over 150 companies that are developing into the semiconductor space. This is the real Silicon Valley. This is where, when you say silicon, this is where it's happening with TSMC, Taiwan Semiconductor, with Intel, and many more supporting companies around it. We are one of the largest, or if not the largest, public school with over 150,000 students. And the number of engineers that we are generating is second to none. The amount of horsepower we have in the valley with the EV, the work we are doing in aerospace and defense, interplanetary space, the work that we are doing, we are at the cutting edge of innovation. The next with generative AI, what's going to happen will be it is the blend of what I call container and a content strategy. The old Silicon Valley looked at purely software. The content. The new Silicon Valley 2.0, in my opinion, that we are emerging will be a blend. The value will be in the blend of container, which is the hardware, and when I say that, visualize robotics, visualize drones, visualize air taxis, where you combine AI with a container, and that value will be 10 times than either separate container or a content. So we are blending, we have the capability to blend it together, merge it together into something that'll be more valuable than anybody has ever seen. That's the reason I'm a big believer in Silicon Valley 2.0.
It's interesting, is what I just heard a lot of what you said is that entrepreneurship requires self-confidence, but it takes self-confidence to be a good entrepreneur. Would you agree with that statement?
I would absolutely agree with that. Absolutely agree with that. And I come from a country that believes in reincarnation, but I don't. For me, this is one life to live, and this is the place, this is one life in which I need to make my impact, my story. The statement I make to my students is, right now you may not be realizing it, but you have been given one life, and everybody told you that you're absolutely special, and you are. Prove it to yourself. Prove it to yourself that you have been put on this earth and that you are the superstars that everybody believes you are. You are the change maker that everybody believes you are.
You talk about a passion for entrepreneurship, because there are some people out there that think when you're running a business that you're going out and playing golf every afternoon because you're running your own thing, so you can be able to set your own time and so on and so forth. You can be able to speak to that, as I know that is not the case, but it sounds like you're living your passion, that it's not going out and just relaxing every day, but everything that you're doing in your business is actually causing you to relax because you're doing the kinds of things that you want to do. Does that sound like entrepreneurship to you?
That's a very good question. When I started my company, and I was working 22 hours a day, and people and I was less tired working 20 hours a day for my own company than when I was working for a company, working 40 hours a week.
Okay. Interesting.
And the whole idea here is that if you're excited and passionate about something that you're doing, it stops being a job. So now you see an intrapreneur, me when I was at Microsoft, becoming an entrepreneur, and now I've come back into teaching, and all the people that you will talk to me about myself in my own department will tell you that I behave more like an entrepreneur or an intrapreneur.
So once you start thinking that way, it's going to stay with you for the rest of your life. So once you kind of start down the entrepreneurship path of thinking, this becomes a part of you regardless of what you're doing.
If you start thinking like that, my friends, it's very contagious. It is worse than any other disease that you have. Entrepreneurship, once you start thinking like an entrepreneur, you will be identifying problems and trying to find solution for the rest of your life. You'll be thinking like an entrepreneur.
That which brings up an interesting point is students, all individuals, are always looking for ways to differentiate themselves, products, brands, you name it. It certainly sounds as though learning about entrepreneurship and becoming an entrepreneur is a way to be able to differentiate yourself.
Think of entrepreneurial way of thinking as icing on the cake on your basic knowledge, right? Without that, run of the mill, same old, that's absolutely fine. Now you suddenly take your strong analytical skills or your strong financial skills or supply chain or business, and you start to put it through the lens of an entrepreneurial mindset, and suddenly you start to see the world in a very different way. You start to see problems, you start to see solutions, and you start to pull from their basic knowledge, and you start to address it in a very structured manner. That, in my book, is a recipe for success. Particularly in this day and age, when you have business models that are old business models that are falling, the new business models that are being created, you look at this landscape and say that, I'm ready for that.
An intelligent person, obviously more intelligent than me, because I can't remember who said it, said that 90% of success is showing up. So if you were to be able to give a closing comment to anybody that's listening to this podcast about what they need to do to show up, how can you get started? How can you be able to move the bar that says, I've done my first sit-up to work out. I've walked around the block the first time. What would be the one thing that you would say just to be able to get moving, to get started in this process?
My suggestion would be, go back to when you were a kid, when you were lying on that grassy field with your mom or dad and looking it up to the sky and you were dreaming, daydreaming about possibilities, about how the cloud became a bunny that your dad may not be able to see, but you did. Start thinking about the baggage. How do you start thinking about the baggage that you have, that you need to jettison? Start to look at the world in a different way. Start thinking about possibilities. Start thinking about things you can do, not things you cannot do. Start believing in yourself. I think those are the basic things. I think if you can start thinking like a kid again and start thinking of possibilities, our legacy, start thinking about what is my story? What will be my story? That's a great start.
Because one of the things that I know will resonate with me was when you said, do I want to be a job maker or do I want to be a job taker? And that I think is where a lot of people ultimately would really like to be able to wind up. So Hitendra, thank you so much for your time today. We will have many more of these podcasts where we'll have several guests that will be coming in to be able to talk to. We appreciate your time and your attention, and we'll be seeing you on our next podcast. Thank you.